Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Low Budget Review Show. I am your host, Eric Smith, and today I am talking about Halloween, the official movie novelization by John Passarella. This is a novelization of the 2018 movie. It is from Titan Books, and I'm going to tell you, this is how you do a novelization. Um, do I need to nutshell this for you? I'll go ahead after I take a sip of my beverage because this is the sixth video that I've recorded and my throat's getting a little dry. There we go. All right, so Halloween 2018, a direct sequel to the original 1978 Halloween. Michael Myers has been locked up for 40 years. Laurie Strode, survivor of the babysitter murders back in 78, has alienated her family as she has spent 40 years preparing to take on Michael Myers once again. And now it's Halloween 2018, and Michael Myers escapes and heads towards Haddonfield. And there you go. Spoilers, I guess, if you haven't seen the movie. So, again, this is a novelization. So if you've seen the movie, you know what's in this book. If you haven't seen the movie, why are you watching this video? No, I don't know. But this, I've read a few novelizations lately. I don't know, I'm just on a kick. And for those of you who watched my review of the Reanimator novelization, you know that was not good. Not good at all. It had a little bit of extra material, but overall it was poorly written. Where the author was describing the things in the movie was really poorly done. And then I recently did The Fun House by Dean Koontz, which is 90% original material, 10% the movie. And even that part that's the movie is barely the movie. This is the perfect middle ground for that. Now, I don't know what John Passarella was working with. I would assume an early draft of the script, because there are some things that are a little bit different, which happens. You know, a movie can be made or broken in the editing suite, and sometimes things get improvised or different takes are tried. So when you're trying to get a novelization out before or at the time that the movie is coming out, it's not going to be exactly the same as the movie, because you never know what's going to happen in editing. And depending on how early the author is writing it, you don't know what's going to happen while they're actually filming. So there are little tiny differences. It's been a little while since I've seen the movie. I think there's a few scenes in here that aren't in the theatrical release, but again, may have been. But what really makes this a good novelization is that the author gets into the characters' heads. It's not something, unless your movie has a voiceover, it's not something that you get in a movie. But this book builds the movie. It fleshes out the film. We learn, I want to say we learn a little bit more about the characters. I think we do. We know enough about the characters if we watch the film, but we get a deeper understanding reading this book. And I really like that. We're getting into the heads of the two podcasters that sort of set everything in motion by going to visit Michael at the Smith's Grove Sanitarium and showing him or holding up his mask. They're the ones that sort of, ish set things in motion. It's not their fault. I'm not going to get into that in case you haven't seen the movie or read the book. But we get into their heads. We get into absolutely into Laurie's head and her granddaughter Allison and her daughter Karen and Dr. Sartain and the cops. Um, and yeah, there's one of the things. I believe there's a scene in the movie with two cops who are outside guarding Laurie Strode's house, and they have this exchange about what they're eating. And I believe they said that that was all. A lot of that was improv, um, and so that's that stuff. There's a tiny bit of them sitting outside the house, and they may mention lunch or something, but that whole exchange, it's not in the book. But again, that was if that was improv on set, the author's not going to have access to that. So again, small changes. But we're getting into people's heads, and we don't quite get into the shape's head, but we do get some things from his perspective, if that makes sense. At a certain point, we start getting little bits that are in italics, and this is sort of from the shape's point of view. And I like that. It adds that depth and that dimension. So John Passarella did a fantastic job with this book. I found it compelling, and I've seen the movie. I know what happens, but it's such a well told story here that I just wanted to keep reading. I wanted to see. Well, I mean, again, I know what's going to happen, but I want to see how the author writes it, describes it. I don't know. It worked well. I liked it a lot. One of the best novelizations that I've read. And I have Halloween Kills. Have not read it yet. Excuse me. We'll see how that goes. But yeah, if you're a fan of the Halloween franchise, especially the new ones, I say read this just for a little more depth into the characters. Again, not that it's necessary. It's kind of a nice bonus. It's well written. There's a lot of great character stuff in here. The end maybe feels a little rushed. Just that. Hard to. There's one thing specifically that maybe it was an artistic choice. There's a scene at the end of the movie that very much builds tension, and it seems like that was given a bit of short shrift, if I'm using that correctly, in the book, almost glossed over. And maybe that was an artistic choice. Maybe I don't know if the author had a word count they had to meet and couldn't exceed. It's not a bad thing, just seemed odd to me that this very tension building moment seen in the movie was one of the few things that didn't build tension in the book. So I think I've covered everything. For those of you who've seen the movie, you know the story. And technically, you do not have to have seen the original movie. This does not cover it. There's no synopsis of what happened in 1978, but there is mention of what happened in 1978. And I think that's all you really need. All you need to know is that 40 years ago, this Michael Myers committed what they're calling the babysitter murders. Laurie Strode is a survivor of that, and this is what's going on 40 years later, and how she's dealing with it, and how it's going to come back to haunt her. And I think it's done in such a fashion that you do not need to have any familiarity with any previous movie or Halloween story. And I like that. It's actually it just made me think of like the original Star Wars. in that, that's a story that takes place in the middle of something, and it hints at things that have happened in the past. We don't need to know those things. Unfortunately, apparently people did, and they made three horrible movies. Um, but in the way that Star Wars, the original Star Wars movie, which was just called Star Wars, could stand completely on its own. You don't need any of the story before, you don't need any story after. It gives you just enough. It builds the world and hints at the past, but we don't need to know it. This basically does the same thing. It tells us just enough of the past so that we understand what's going on now. But we don't need to know all the details. Now, of course, Halloween's not a prequel. That's the original. So it's not a perfect analogy, but hopefully you understand what I'm saying. This completely works as a standalone story. You don't need any previous knowledge. So if there's anybody at all that's watching this who's never seen a Halloween movie, you could pick this up and read it and have a great read. And you don't need to worry about any previous information. So that's Halloween, the official movie novelization. John Passarella, Titan Books, Miramax, Blumhouse, all those credits on the back. Yeah, I think it's a fantastic novelization. Perfect example of the art form. So, do I have a question for this video? People have already mentioned in some of the other reviews whether or not they enjoy novelizations. So, what are your thoughts on the Halloween franchise? There's a question for you. I've never been a huge fan. Technically, there's only two Halloween movies I've never seen, which is the one with the reality show that goes into the house with, is it Busta Rhymes that's in it? I've never seen that one. And then, which is the final one in original continuity. I don't know how that works. And I've never seen the second Rob Zombie one. But I've seen all the rest. I've never been a huge fan. Like the first one. Second one's fine. I actually like the third one, but it's not part of the, Michael Myers mythos. After that, I didn't think the Rob Zombie one was horrible. I have some problems with it, but I don't think they're the same problems most people have. I don't mind that he gives this backstory. I just think he sort of pushes the grittiness a little too much. And I'm a Rob Zombie fan, but by the end of the movie, if I'd never heard somebody screaming in terror again, I would have been fine. There was so much just shrill screaming in that movie. I liked the 2018 Halloween, and I really liked Halloween Kills. Never been a huge Michael Myers fan until these last two movies, most recent ones, actually had me digging Michael Myers. I've always been a Jason Voorhees fan myself. He's always been my favorite, but Michael might be moving on up. I really dug him in these most recent movies. What do you think? How do you like the Halloween films? Are you a Michael Myers fan? Let me know. What's your favorite in the franchise? Yeah, let me know in the comments below. And if you have any comments, questions, or corrections, please put them in the comments below. Comments are open for spoilers. Just post spoiler warning. We try to be polite here at the Low Budget Review Show. Please like, share, and subscribe, all that YouTube stuff. If you'd care to follow me on other social media, my Twitter is at Ronin5757. My Instagram, where I post pictures of books, comic books, board games, and fuzzy animals, is Eric Smith 5757. That's Eric with a K. ERIKSMITH 5757. That's all I've got. This has been the Low Budget Review Show. I have been Eric Smith. And until next time, read more books.